Ukrainian citizens woke to the sound of air raid sirens early Thursday morning as Russian forces began invading the country from the north, east, and south, and cruise missiles rained down on strategic military targets. The attacks began around 5 a.m. local time, shortly after President Vladimir Putin announced on Russian television the launch of a, quote, special military operation in Ukraine. Here for our ongoing coverage of the conflict actions are Yohanan Petrovsky-Stern, a professor of Jewish Studies and History at Northwestern University with a specialty in Eastern European and Ukrainian history. He signed an open letter sent by Ukrainian Jews to encourage Germany's chancellor to take a tougher stance against Russian aggression. And Alberto Cole, professor of law and U.S. foreign relations at DePaul University. In the early 90s, Cole was principal deputy assistant secretary of defense in the Pentagon. I welcome both of you here to Chicago tonight. First of all, Professor Petrovsky-Stern, you have relatives, you have friends in Ukraine. What are you hearing from them right now?
Well, I'm monitoring the situation, listening to the different Ukrainian medias, and of course talking to my mom, who is in Kiev, and to my mother-in-law, who is in Lviv, central and western Ukraine. And I talk also to my colleagues in Dnipro, Kharkiv, and other cities. I have many friends and colleagues, and I worry about them.
And what are they telling you?
They are telling me that they are calm, that they stand firm, and they are ready to defend the country. They are indignant when they talk about the unprovoked invasion of the Russian troops into the sovereign Ukraine. And they talk from different places. Some of them are on their way to bomb shelters. Some of them are in a subway, also looking for cover. Others are at home, and there are people in the streets.
And we certainly hope that they stay safe. Alberto Cole, we mentioned what the last 24 hours have been like. What do you believe the next hours, days, weeks, months will look like in Ukraine?
I think President Putin has made it very clear that his goal is to seize all of Ukraine, to overthrow the legitimate, democratically elected government in Kiev. And so basically what he's going to do is set up a puppet government in Kiev that will respond to Russia's interests and even go further, perhaps do the equivalent of an Anschluss, the same thing that Hitler did with Austria in 1939. I think President Putin is eyeing that kind of an option for Ukraine and later on for Belarus too, which he's practically occupied. So it's an open question how hard the Ukrainian military will be able to resist. Definitely the Ukrainian people are going to fight very heroically. They're going to fight very hard. There's been a huge change in Ukraine over the last decade, just a tremendous growth in Ukrainian nationalism, Ukrainian patriotism. And they had decided, over 40 million Ukrainians had decided they wanted to be Europeans. They did not want to live or be a part of Putin's Russia.
I was going to say, Putin told Russian state media earlier this week that his goal was not an occupation. Clearly untrue statements there. Here's a little bit of what he said in that broadcast.
Our plans are not to occupy Ukraine. We do not plan to impose ourselves on anyone. Anyone who tries to intervene, to be a threat to our country, to our people, should know that Russia's response will be fast. We're ready to use any development. Every decision can be made.
Yohanan Petrovsky-Stern, is it your understanding that this is a broader assault on the Western world order, on the concept of liberal democracy, and an attack on the EU and even the United States that clearly he clearly does not agree with the way that our countries are run?
Let me start by saying something that I believe we have to understand. Putin is mocking the international law. Putin is mocking the security situation in Europe. He's making fun of the attempts to stop him. And he basically acts as a bully and as a main dog in a pack. He says, this is my prey. Everybody who intervenes, I will bite you. I will swallow you. This is number one. Number two, Ukrainians and let's not forget that this is about Ukraine and Ukrainians, a democratic country with a democratically elected president, multicultural country, democratic country that wants to be, as Alberta nicely mentioned, to be part of Europe, the country based on European values and democracy. So this country is not trying to be under Putin. This country is ready to defend itself, and Ukraine will resist. But now let's look again at what Putin is saying. He says, on the one hand, that he starts an limited military operation to occupy the newly acknowledged, the newly recognized territories in southeastern Ukraine that he and only he recognizes as independent republics. And on the other hand, he attacks Ukraine from south, east, and north. And he is launching attacks against the peaceful Ukrainian population and ordinary Ukrainians who are 700 miles from the place that he declared to be occupying. So we are dealing not only with a bully, we are dealing with a liar, an outward liar. There is nothing what he says makes sense and is true.
Certainly clear from his remarks on Monday, they certainly did not prove to be true. Alberto Cole, President Biden today mentioned that as a result of this, the ruble has fallen, the Russian economy is hurting, the stock market there is going down. Couple that with sanctions, does it have any deterrence impact at all?
No, not at all, not at all. Putin is very much of a geopolitical player. His top priority is to expand his territory. His goal is to recreate old imperial Russia, to recreate the Soviet Union. And he wants to be seen as a great historical figure, as the Peter the Great of the 21st century, or as the Joseph Stalin leader in the 21st century. So these measures will hurt Russia over the long term economically, but they will not alter his calculus. His calculus is military, is political, is geopolitical particularly. And so sadly, the sanctions will not bite enough to deter him. And I think our listeners should understand that there are people out there, and Vladimir Putin is one of them, and I think Xi Jinping in China is another one, and probably the Iranian mullahs in Tehran are another group of people who believe, okay, that the only thing that can really stop them, the only thing that deters them is hard military power. And I think this is a time for the American people and for President Biden to come clean with the American people and talk about the need for the United States and its allies to strengthen our military, to spend even more money than we're doing right now, because we're facing a world in which Beijing and Moscow working together will challenge the United States, will challenge our allies, our friends. Watch out for what could happen to Taiwan in Asia over the next 4 or 5 years.
And certainly there have been some rumblings about that as well right now. Perhaps some of these actors feel emboldened. So much to talk about. We will continue to do this in the days and weeks to come. But for now, our thanks to Yohanan Petrovsky-Stern and Alberto Cole.
Thank you.